Good morning. How's things? Nice to see you. So we have special guests today. James and Crystal Neuendorf are serving as foreign missionaries to Puerto Rico. Are you still foreign? Have you been outside of America for longer than you were inside America yet? Or not quite? Not quite yet. Almost. Yeah. We were also college classmates, so this is kind of fun. James is also the brother of Katie Helmreich, and so it's a joy to have them here. And they're getting some technology issues sorted out, but I wanted to introduce them and say a quick prayer, and then I need more coffee. So the Lord be with you. Thanks. Let's pray. Lord, keep us steadfast in your word. Curb those who by deceit or sword would wrest the kingdom from your Son and bring to naught all he has done. Amen.
So we're working on the computer, and we'll get the presentation up in a second. But I just wanted to start out by saying thank you. Your congregation has been so supportive, especially the Friendship Circle. I think it's every month we get a little note from the Friendship Circle. It's just really, really great to be here and to reconnect and share. We have had probably the craziest 3 years in all of our 13 years of missionary service. Since we went to Puerto Rico. It has been an absolute whirlwind. Crystal, we're going to go ahead and use your computer. Mine's not turning on. So I think it's probably the outlet. But the title of our presentation today is Unshakable. And eventually that's going to be up on the screen. But it comes from a Bible verse that we'll be reflecting on together from Hebrews. So if you've got your Bibles, go ahead and turn to Hebrews. I believe it's Hebrews chapter 13, but I'm prepared to be wrong because I always have it up on the screen and I don't have to think about it. Twelve, 26 to 29. Okay, we're going to read this. We're going to do this old-fashioned style without the fancy TV or any of that. By the way, this fellowship hall is incredible. This is the first time that we've seen it. So, Hebrews chapter 12. Verses, did you say 26? 21 to 26. 26 to 21? To 29. Okay, sorry, I'm not hearing too well. All right, it says, at that time, his voice shook the earth. But now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of things that are shaken, that is, things that have been made, in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. Now, classic Lutheran question, is this law or gospel? Yeah, classic Lutheran answer. Yeah, it's kind of both, isn't it? What does it mean that the earth and the heavens will be shaken? They'll be changed, okay? Judged. Yeah, this is kind of an apocalyptic scene, right? And who is doing the shaking? God is doing the shaking. Now, I can tell you that is a little bit disconcerting the first time you realize what this is saying. When everything is being shaken and everything is being reset, knocked down, that isn't the enemy, that's the Lord. Now, as I mentioned in the sermon, everywhere we've been going, we've been hearing from everyone about all of the things that have been knocked down or shaken in their communities. There's a lot of talk about things in schools and in the church itself, in our country. Everything seems like it's been turned upside down, right? Is this verse comforting then, or terrifying? It's both. There you go, the same Lutheran answer. Because God is the one allowing things to be shaken. Let's read this again a little more closely. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of things that are shaken. Everything that is shakeable is shaken and therefore is destroyed. Everything that, the removal of things that are shaken, that is, things that have been made, in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. I want you to think about what that means. You know this. Even though we've all been struggling, we know that nothing that Jesus gives to us can be taken away by the world. Nothing that Jesus has given to us can be taken away. The means by which those things might have been given to us can be taken. Right? We can lose a lot of wonderful things. A lot of beautiful things that have been built by human hands can be destroyed. But the things that Jesus gives us are ours forever. It says, therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. I can tell you, I'm from Michigan. I'm from right around here. And at least in my lifetime, we never had an earthquake in the Franconian colonies. Maybe there was one a long time ago. But have any of you lived through an earthquake? Maybe living somewhere else at some point? It is really something else. I had never experienced anything like it. Because the thing about an earthquake, a bad storm, we've all had bad storms, right? And the wind beats against the windows, and you're inside safe, and it's sometimes a little scary as you hear it hit the roof. The thing about an earthquake is it's everywhere, and it's everything. It's the floor that picks you up and tosses you around. And then you go outside, and it's the ground outside that picks you up and tosses you around. It's the whole world being shaken, and it's terrifying. It was, 5 a.m. when it happened 2 years ago now, and woke us up out of bed, and you get this sense of everything is ending. What am I supposed to do? This panic. And I think a lot of us are feeling that way about a lot of things right now. But we know that we have a kingdom that cannot be shaken. We know that we have a foundation in our baptism in Jesus that can't be destroyed. So now I want you to think about what it would be like for you to be one of those people going through this shaking of all created things and not having anything that couldn't be shaken. What if 100% of the things that you trust in are picked up and tossed around? That is what your neighbor is living through right now. That is what the people in Puerto Rico have been living through. That's why we share our faith. We share our foundation. Because to go through a shaking like that and have nothing to hold on to is terrifying on an existential level. So that's why you've sent us there, to lead people to this unshakable kingdom and to bring Christ to people who are shaking. You know, the most common question, and I didn't they didn't teach us this in seminary, but the most common question I get as a pastor in Puerto Rico is, Pastor, is this the apocalypse? It sure seems like this is the apocalypse. You have to think about it. In Puerto Rico, they had an economic collapse like the 1930s Great Depression in the early 2010s. Then, as they're reeling from this economic collapse, they got hit by 2 Category 3 and then Category 5 hurricanes. Then the next year, during a political crisis, they had an earthquake, and then 2 months later, the pandemic. People are terrified. And they ask me, is this the apocalypse? I ask you, how would you respond? See, the thing is, the answer is yes. Does anyone know what the word apocalypse means? Other than the pastor? He's probably taught you this before. What do you think an apocalypse means? What do we usually associate with an apocalypse? The end, the destruction, right? An apocalypse movie is about how meteorites are coming down and zombies arise from the ground, right? The word apocalypse is a Greek word that means the uncovering, or maybe a little hint, revelation. To have something be revealed. Our Spanish title for the last book of the Bible is Apocalypsis, Apocalypse, which is the Greek title for the book. The unveiling, the revealing, the uncovering. The idea, the central idea of the apocalypse, of Revelation, is that when everything will be shaken, when all the things of this world are revealed for what they are, and what are they? Dust. Then the Lord and his kingdom will be revealed for what it is. And what is it? Eternal and unshakable. And part of the apocalypse will be, there are these apocalypse people. They sound scary, right? You are the apocalypse people. Because the apocalypse people will be revealed for who they are. Or maybe more accurately, whose they are. The church will be revealed to be the eternal city of God, the bride of Christ. And the powerful of this world will be revealed to be nothing. So, I don't know if this is good or bad news. You are living in the apocalypse. You are being revealed. Not fully yet. And you're seeing things revealed too. Maybe you've trusted a little bit too much in the stability of your country, or of your investments, or of your own health. And that revelation shows, that's just dust. It can be used for a while to bring Jesus. But what you have that's eternal is what matters. So that's an encouragement for you, because we are going through the same thing that you are, and we are your missionaries who are leading people to this unshakable kingdom. So that's what it's all about. I'm going to hand this over to Deaconess Crystal. She's going to tell us where Puerto Rico is and a little bit about what the details of that look like.
Awesome. I might just hold this for now. It's so great to be back here and to be with all of you today, and to share a little bit about what it's like Puerto Rico and what that has been about. So just to kind of bring you through where Puerto Rico is and where it is, how many of you have been to Puerto Rico? Awesome. Okay, great. Where have you guys been? My house. Very good. And I live in Ponce. Very good. How about the rest of you? San Juan? Okay, awesome, great. You can go ahead, James, and go through. So this is Puerto Rico, so south of Florida, go south over to Cuba, past the Dominican Republic, and then we have here an island of Puerto Rico. Very small island. It's kind of a rectangle here, so pretty simple. And we live in the town of Ponce. So the LCMS has two different mission congregations in Puerto Rico. One in Mayaguez, which is just right over here, over to the west, and then in Ponce. Mayaguez is about 20 years old as a mission, but Ponce is only about 4 years old. So our congregation is really young. People have come into the church about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and we're really starting to form and build what that means as a congregation and what it means to be part of the family of God. And so that's been a really big part of what we've been doing as missionaries, as your missionary team in Puerto Rico. And go ahead. Taking a closer look, this is Ponce. This is an area, kind of a real metro area here, very cultural. Anyway. And just kind of give you a kind of a glimpse of this. So Puerto Rico is about 2.7 million people, so it's pretty small, very small population. It's really about half. It's been dwindling over the years. More and more people are continuing to leave the island to come back here to the mainland. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. They cannot vote, but they're U.S. citizens, and so a lot of people have family here in the mainland and come back for work and different things. Population of Ponce is 137,000, so it's around the size of Fort Wayne. That's how I always kind of see it. But kind of what's interesting here is the median age is 44. So a few years ago, 3 years ago, James and I served in the Dominican Republic. We were there for about 7 years. And the median age in the Dominican is 19, which is pretty crazy. A very young population, but coming back to Puerto Rico, it's 44. And so that really affects and directs a lot of the mission that we're involved in, the focus that we have of the people that we're serving and the people that are around us, which has been an awesome opportunity, but a very big, kind of a different shift in different things. So as James was mentioning earlier, what are we doing? What is the purpose of this and this unshakable kingdom? And today we're going to be talking about that and how the Lord is in that foundation of the church and is always is permanent in all of that, and it is unshakable. And we kind of wanted to walk through that a little bit. We've been talking a little bit about the earthquake and all that happened, and we'd like to kind of walk you through that, just kind of see, so you can kind of see different aspects of the ministry and what that looks like in Puerto Rico. But kind of just, so right here, this is our church street. So in the sermon, for those of you in first service, James mentioned that we were able to find a building. So we received a grant from LCMS Disaster Response right after the Hurricane Maria, and so we had remaining funds with that. We were able to purchase a building, and it took a very long time. Basically, the first year we were serving, it was trying to find a building that fit all of these needs for the congregation, but also for the mission and for the future of the church. And so we found it, I think, after about 40 different places, taking around. It's a long process. About 20 people, 25 people plus have to agree on a lot of different things. And so we were able to find that, which was a real gift. And it's right here in the middle, really close to downtown. And so, as mentioned, we were able to open. We had a month to kind of just open up the area for the sanctuary. And then we had our first service this day, 2 years ago, the first Sunday in Advent. And so it was a real blessing and a gift to do that. But then on Epiphany, we experienced a large earthquake, a 6.4 and a 6.2, which resulted in a lot of devastation, a lot of kind of craziness for the church and the congregation. All of these buildings here, like this yellow building, this apartment building, all of these they're condemned. They need to be imploded. So everyone that lives in there is no longer there. And that shapes a lot of what the church neighborhood looks like. It's kind of vacant now. In the sense of what was very populated. So as we kind of go through that, this is kind of taking a look at what happened. So that happened. Our church wall was cracked. We couldn't be in the church anymore. So we were able to go. We had church for a week or two in our garage. So we had everyone come. We live close to church, which is a huge blessing. Had that. And then we were able to rent out a room at the mall, really close to where we live, close to where the church is at. It's a room about half this size, and it's a community center. So it was a great opportunity to be in the mall. Everyone was in there, passing by, going shopping, and we were there. it was great, except we could only rent it for about 2 hours on a Sunday. So any kind of continued ministry isn't really happening. So we needed to kind of look for something more permanent, which we found, and which was this. So it was a storefront, again, close by the mall, close by church. A lot of our people in our congregation walk to church, or they ride a bike. A few people have cars, but it's very important to be local, to be close. The farther away we get, even if it's a good building, a good place, we could lose a lot of people. Also, communication is very hard. Not everyone has a phone, or they have a phone that continually changes. So we're a small group of people, but keeping communication and keeping people in a rhythm of things is really important. So we were blessed with this awesome rented facility. It used to be a cell phone building, cell phone store. So we cleaned it all out, got it ready, real simple. It was very small. It had easy access out, and it was one story, which is really important because when people have gone through an earthquake, and I'm sure a lot of, if you've gone through it, you get this unsettling feeling of this can implode on me very quickly. And so we wanted something that had easy access out and that felt safe. Because at this point in time, people were still living in tents outside of their house. They were gathering in parks. They didn't want to be in a building. So we needed to think that kind of what would work. So that was in February, and then, of course, we joined all of you in March with the pandemic. So no one wanted to be in a small enclosed space anymore. That was easy access out. No one wanted to be together. And so we went online for a while and continued to reach out, like all of you guys did. But another big part of that was also letters. We did a lot of writing to people, because as I mentioned before, not everyone has phones, not everyone has internet at their house, and connecting with people was a real struggle, and it was really important that we had some kind of connection with them. So we kept going through with that, and finally we were able to be outside. This is our Mercy House, which we'll talk about in a bit. And we were outside here up through starting in Pentecost, which was great, and then we were finally able to be joined back in our sanctuary. So kind of a little journey of how the Lord has sustained us as a small congregation through that firm foundation in our congregation. You can kind of see the back wall here was just recently redone. It's painted now, and there's a beautiful painting. I think we have it later that Katie did, and Ben mounted for us over here of the woman at the well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Very good. So I'm going to give this over to you to talk a little bit about our ministries. We kind of wanted to talk about how we got back going through these disasters, what that looks like. But what does it look like as a mission as a whole? What is our missionary team doing? What are we focusing on? What are the things that we're really working on over these next few years of focusing on the people? And so we have 3 different areas. The first one is our congregation. And this is our logo for our congregation. And I'd like to ask you, I'll have James come up a little bit. What do you see? What do you see in this logo?
All right, I'm hearing a lion, a lamb, a cross, a pitcher of water, and maybe a flame. Yeah, so this is a logo we came up with. The name of our congregation is Fuente de Vida, Fountain of Life Lutheran Church. It was come up with by my predecessor, who was there just at the very beginning of, is this not working yet? Oh. It's my wife, so it's probably something about my, oh, there it is, see? I knew. So the idea is Fountain of Life Lutheran Church, and we kind of based our ministry plan around John 4, around the woman at the well, the encounter with the woman at the well. The idea of being a place in the city, similar to how we talked about the donkey, to be the well, which is to say a place where people encounter Christ. And who maybe are marginalized by their community, who maybe have some pretty weird ideas, just like the Samaritan woman did, about who God is, but they do have a sort of a basic knowledge, and this really represents kind of the Puerto Rican spirituality. So you're having an encounter with Christ where you're learning who Christ really is through these relationships and learning to set aside the water jar. And so this is all kind of built around this idea of that encounter with Christ. And the interesting part is the name Fountain of Life was not chosen because of John 4. It was chosen because of a different reason. The city's name is Ponce, right? Who knows anything about Juan Ponce de Leon, the conquistador? Okay, yeah. He was searching for the fountain of youth. That's his famous thing. And so my predecessor said, we're going to name the church that because if he'd come here, he would have found the fountain of everlasting life. And then another ironic thing, we ended up, when we were searching for this property, completely outside of everything else, we found this great property, and it's on a street called Health Street, Calle Salud. And I did some research about why is it called that. And it turns out that it was named Calle Salud because all the way back in the conquistador days, this street led out of the downtown and went to a thermal spring that local legend held was the Fountain of Youth. They put a channel in later and killed the hot spring, and it looks like the hot spring may be right under our building. So this brings it right to us. It's also probably why the earthquakes were so bad in our community, in our immediate area, because the ground's hollow. So that was kind of fun. And it also was a sugar plantation, and there's a monument across the street of slaves being set free that the Puerto Rican government put up for liberation of slavery. So all of that's kind of built in there. The lion is the symbol of Ponce, Ponce de Leon, Leon lion. So we kind of built that all in together. But our idea as a congregation is really to focus on those marginalized people and bring them into that encounter with Christ, to receive the living water. It's kind of the theme of a lot of our artwork and everything. And that means a lot of what we do is education, conversational education. This was one of the first building projects we were able to do. While everything was locked down, we were working in here to get this room ready. This is our new fellowship, our education hall. A little smaller than yours, but we're really, really pleased with how it's turned out. And we use this to teach classes, confirmation classes, workshops, all kinds of things. Regular Bible study. We're working through the book of Romans, verse by verse, very, very slowly. And it's been a really, really great resource. But we're really working on that foundation with the congregation there. One of our other great things that we're able to do as a congregation for outreach is we have a radio program. This is a partnership that we have with Lutheran Hour. I don't know how many of you listen to Lutheran Hour or used to listen to Lutheran Hour. We have a great partnership with them. And we have two Puerto Ricans, William Torres, who's our oldest church member over in Mayagüez, and Yaritza Rosa, who works for Lutheran Hour in Puerto Rico. And they're both on the radio twice a week for an hour-long program. And we're hoping to expand this more and more as we go. And a chance for people to kind of encounter. They talk about daily life, social issues with the gospel. So, great. I'm going to hand it back over to Leo.
Very good. So the other part that you saw up there, the other logo, was this heart and cross. So this is the Mercy Center aspect of ministry. Go ahead. And this is another big area of ministry that we're having in Puerto Rico. This is our house. So we talked about getting the church. Now we have this house. This is an old historic house in Ponce. It has one of the oldest staircases. It's a very historic place, but it definitely has seen better days. So we're focusing a lot on getting this upgraded and having a functioning bathroom, and things like that. But we've been working really hard to get that going. We can be inside now. It's painted. The floors are done. You have air conditioning, so it's a big step in the right direction. But the reason we have this, and the whole purpose of having this house, this Mercy House, is to bring people in. So we kind of mentioned a little bit about our congregation, but also the community of Ponce and a lot of Puerto Rico. A lot of people are very alone. If people don't live alone, they are feeling very alone and isolated. Anxiety, depression rates are really, really high. as James mentioned earlier, with all of the different kind of disasters, the economic collapse, Hurricane Maria that happened in 2017, we had the earthquakes that happened, and now the pandemic. It's kind of one thing after another with no real resolution and not a lot of time to process what's happening. And so a lot of times people are feel very alone, very kind of in desperation. And so a big part of what our Mercy Care and reaching out to the community is bringing people in. We can visit sometimes people at their houses. It's a little bit different culturally. It's not always as open. But with the Mercy House, with the church, we're able to bring people in to be part of a community. And a big part of that is teaching people what it means to be a church. I love coming back, and I love to see all of you together, gathering together for a Bible study, kids going to Sunday school. We have a Lutheran school. You guys have church activities. All of those things, the church you've been taught that. You have that foundation here. And it's so beautiful because it's so great and encouraging to see, because that is what we're building here, bringing people in. What does it mean to be a family? And so, go ahead. So a lot of times what we're doing is we're kind of doing simple family things together with people. So we started over the summer. We did once a week here in Ponce and once a week in Mayaguez with our team there. We just gather together. We play games. We do crafts. We visit, and we eat. That has been the biggest thing that we have found is so important, is that we eat together. For some people, it really is. They're looking forward to that meal for the day. That's the only meal they might get. For others, it's simply just being together and having someone to eat it with. And so that's been something we've really been focusing on and having a great time with. And especially as the pandemic has lessened a little bit, we've been able to open those doors and receive people in. This is a birthday party we had too. So this is a big thing that we're trying to really do is encourage and celebrate people's birthdays, because oftentimes people have no one to celebrate it with. And so after church, we have these little get-togethers. People bring their own treats, or we bring them and we celebrate. So this was this lady's, Arlene's, birthday here in the black shirt. So we're able to celebrate with her and be family. That's what families do. They get together, they celebrate. And another big aspect that we're really working on and focusing, which reaches kind of a different group of people, is English as a second language. So during the pandemic, over 2020 and early 2021, we had one-on-one ESL classes on Zoom. I don't know if any of you have been a part of that. And so what happened when people would volunteer from the mainland here and connect with our students in Puerto Rico, we would connect that. Our good friend Ruth did all of that, connecting and organizing. So now that we're back in person, we're able to bring people into the building, and it's really kind of great to finally meet people face to face. I feel like that's been a really kind of an interesting reality that we're living in, of knowing someone for over a year virtually, and then you finally meet them face to face. So that's been really kind of a fun and fascinating way, but it's been really great. It's been an awesome opportunity for us as a mission team to reach out to our community. ESL is it's a big need. A lot of people, one, for higher education is all in English, and then two, for a lot of professions, it's really important to be bilingual. And so it's been an opportunity for people to grow professionally too. And then finally, our last kind of aspect of this is our Explorers of Creation. And so this is our kids program. This is something that we're really focusing on as well. Really excited about it. And kind of came out of the pandemic as well. We had a virtual VBS 2 years ago. We advertised on Facebook, got kids to come. We did everything online. And from there, we were still locked down. Puerto Rico had some pretty heavy lockdowns. There's still a lot of heavy lockdowns going on. Restrictions, I should say, not lockdowns. And so we started from there. After that online VBS, we did monthly gatherings with kids. So we invited those same kids to come back. And go ahead. We have our character, Carlos, here. He's a puppet. So we talked about William earlier. This is William Torres. He has a huge puppet ministry. He's done this since he was a teenager, and he's been continuing to do it. And so we have this Carlos as our main character, and Carlos goes on adventures. He goes exploring every month. And so we've been able to connect with them online, and then this summer we were able to do it in person. So really excited. It was an awesome team opportunity. This is William's wife. She's a science teacher. This year we went to space. And so it was just kind of all bringing people in. It's all about, we reached out as much as we could during the pandemic, and now bringing people in person, and that's been a big part of our ministry in Puerto Rico. So yeah, so here we did a lot of filming too, so we could have it online. It's a lot of fun. And then this is Carlos to his press conference after he went to the moon. So a lot of fun. Everyone had fun, and everyone with the congregation was involved. So awesome opportunity. I'm going to pause here, especially with our time. We have a few more stories to tell, but want to take some time for questions or comments. This is a picture of our congregation. Not everybody, but it's a good group of us in Ponce. A lot of different people. Everyone has a really unique story of how the Lord brought them to the church, and it's a real privilege to be with them and to bring them into the congregation and to walk with them in that. But I would like to pause for comments or questions, and then we can always keep talking, but I recognize the time, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you were doing the ministry in the mall, how many people would come in? I mean, was it open for shopping during that time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So how many people came in at the mall? So there were quite a few people that would kind of stop and they would look. They see our sign. I think a few people kind of wandered in. We only did it for 2 weeks because we were trying to find something a little more permanent. But it was an awesome opportunity to share, to kind of get our name out there. That's been half of what we do is like, however it ends up is, your name's out there. The Lutheran Church is here. We're here in this town. So definitely an opportunity for the future too. Yeah. Oh, yeah, either one. You guys can find it out.
First, thanks for what you do, and I appreciate your presentation. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
I have two questions. When I think of Central, South America, and Hispanic countries, I think of the Roman Catholic Church proselytizing. Is that a misconception on my part? Is it really Roman Catholic or not? And my second question is political. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, but you and or the population, do they like that state? Do they prefer statehood? Do they prefer complete independence? Or a little bit about the politics, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question. So the first question on Roman Catholicism, yes, predominantly Roman Catholic. However, the history, especially in Puerto Rico, is very fascinating. It used to be a Spanish colony, and so when it was, there was only about 4 or 5 priests for the whole island. And the majority of them were in San Juan. So people who were out on the other parts of the island really had no spiritual leadership. They had their roots, they had their cultural traditions, religious traditions, but that was about it. So oftentimes, it was a grandmother, abuela, who would kind of lead the family in kind of whatever ritual that they remembered or that they continued to want to do. They'd have relics, they'd have things that their family brought back, or brought over, I should say. But over, hundreds of years, that really changes how people look at different things. You also have indigenous population that people were already there. So the mix of belief, as much as it is Roman Catholicism, it's also very familial, and there's also a lot of individual beliefs of how things are. Most people believe that there is God. God is real. But after that, it's very diverse, and it's been really fascinating talking with people that are come into the church, who are members, different things that they believe or understand or have grown up with. What does that mean, and what does it say in the Bible about that? Because of that, there's also a lot of spirituality, a lot of witchcraft kind of things. It's kind of fascinating. In the Dominican Republic, we saw a lot of it. People were very open about that. They'd have things in their houses. We'd go on visits with people with all of their, it's called Santeria. They'd have their saints that also have a demonic side. They're very open about that. But in Puerto Rico, you don't see that. They don't talk about it as much, but it's everywhere. There's a lot of, like in Ponce alone, I think there's 7, they call them botanicas, where you can find the oils or the soaps, and there's a lot of other magic story. They're everywhere because it's being practiced. It's very superstitious. So, yes, Roman Catholicism, especially in Ponce, very on the outside, is very culturally that way. They celebrate the Guadalupe. That's a big deal in Puerto Rico. So for her, the Virgin of Guadalupe, she's a patron saint, the Virgin of the island. Ponce, that's right, sorry. But it's really interesting what that actually looks like for a day-to-day person, what that looks like. Political, very interesting. So you were kind of asking about like statehood or independence, so there's basically kind of 3 areas that people find themselves in. One is statehood, and I know that kind of came up this last election. That was a big deal. There's also people that want to be independent as their own country. That's kind of dwindling a little bit more. And there really is a lot of people who kind of are fine the way it is, which is really interesting, which is a territory. They don't vote, but they're U.S. citizens. It becomes kind of convenient when you're international or you're a national. However, whatever situation you're in is how it, when it's convenient, you're kind of that or the other. So it's a very interesting place to be, because you're kind of, I didn't realize how much you take for granted that you're in a country and this is my country and I'm part of this and I'm a citizen here, and whether you like how it's going or not, this is your country. When we lived in different countries, it was kind of like, yes, we don't live here, we're residents here, but this is their country and they have this pride in this country and this is how they do things here. It's very different there, and there's always kind of an odd tension of that because there's no real certainty, and it's people. I think that's part of the lucha, the struggle in that. So, good question. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, good question. So when we first got there, yes. So there was a group. There was a previous pastor there. He was in Mayaguez for about a year or two, and then he spent a year in Ponce. And he gathered this group of people together, who became members right before. He actually took a call in November, and they were confirmed in October. So there was a lapse of about 4 months where they were being served by our other missionary team before we got there. So there was a group, and they're still there. A good group of them, good number of them are still there. So by God's grace, it's an incredible blessing. Sorry, there was a yes.
I know Haiti's been sort of falling apart structurally. I think Puerto Rico probably being an American protectorate, whatever side of the table. Securities and the security issues. Didn't they have a power blackout too on the island? The power grid went down.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, the power has been it never has been maintained since like 1940s. It's always kind of just none of the power grids, none of the substations have been maintained. They've just kept going. When Hurricane Maria came in 2017, it took a big hit. As you guys probably know, a lot of the island was out for months, some places a whole year, because they're so remote. And because it was just, there was no structure, the structure is just declining. Recently, we've been having rolling blackouts. Right before we left, we would go out with like half a day would be out. They'd switch it off because one substation was destroyed during the earthquake, so that was another one out, and then another one caught on fire probably about 4 or 5 months ago. So they're not being replaced. And so it's like it's like dwindling on kind of on that a very, very weak infrastructure. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But it's kind of just hanging on. Everything's just kind of hanging on. Yeah, we'll see. So that was the other thing with FEMA. When FEMA got out, they received, obviously, and that's a whole other discussion. A lot of it it had to be to repair, not to correct the infrastructure to maintain. It had to be to repair what was broken from the hurricane. So a lot of that just got pushed off. So, yeah.
I have a question. In your ministry there, are you able to openly go about your business without being suppressed by any kind of somebody saying, don't do this, don't do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is the United States, so there is a separation of church and state in the sense of we feel that a lot more. For you guys, it would be normal, but we feel that a lot more because when we've served before in the Dominican and Panama, that doesn't exist. So there's a really openness of like, well, you're a Christian, you can come talk to us, and we'll see. Very open. In Puerto Rico, people are open, and it's a lot more spiritual, but there are different requirements with that.
So I have an interesting story to tell about that, actually. We were working with a government housing project for a while. We had a church member that was there. And they snuck me in, because you're not allowed to do this. They snuck me in to do a pastoral blessing at this event after the press left. So they had the people come and, we're doing, they do the official thing with the mayor. And then they were like, okay, they're gone. now do the blessing, right? Because there's this understanding like, well, we know we want this, but we're not allowed because of the government. So they kind of take this idea of separation of church and state as that religion is prohibited. We did have some, with the early COVID restrictions, they were very severe in Puerto Rico. I mean, curfews, people had to stay home. And we had a couple kind of nervous moments with with police coming and checking in on our services and things like that. So we had to be a little careful. And yet we do have the backup of the U.S. Constitution that we absolutely could assert those rights, which we couldn't have done in other places. So ironically, in other countries, we could teach religion in a public school. But there was also the chance that the government could totally shut you down because you don't have the protection. Here, we're not allowed to teach, we're not allowed to speak publicly, and yet we have the rights on paper to do that. So we know we can stand up in court and do it. So it's a weird situation. Probably have time for one more question if there is a burning one. All right, well, oh, yep. So that's unfortunately a kind of a rolling number with everything going on. On average, we have about 15 people in worship, and probably, yeah, similar number confirmed. Baptized, I've baptized 3 people since we've gotten there. Most people at an older age have been baptized as children in the Catholic Church, so we don't do as many baptisms. Yeah, right now we are definitely going through kind of a tough time with the lockdowns. People are just completely burned out. So we're having a hard time getting people to come to activities as of the last 6 months or so. That's something for your prayers. We keep thinking, okay, now it's kind of letting up. People are going to start being more open to coming, but people are just really worried all the time. They're living a lot of fear. And that's a hard bridge to cross because someone who's afraid of contact with people, you can't exactly kick their door down and say, no, come on in. So we're in a weird transition right now in that way. All right, well, thank you all. I think we're reaching the end of our time here. Do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah. Just wanted to say thank you again for all of your prayers and support as a congregation. It really means a lot. It's so great to come back and see all of you and family and friends alike. So it's such a joy. It really is it's so encouraging too. Especially over these last 3 years, it's been pretty intense. But I wanted to say thank you so much, and also for all your support, your financial support, your prayer support. We have a table out there with our prayer cards. We have new prayer cards. If you would like to get our newsletter, you can sign up for that. Some different opportunities there. So we're so thankful. Oh, there you go. Right here. You can go online to lcms.org/Neuendorf there. It's on our cards as well if you're interested at all in support. We also have a Mission Centers program, which a few of you are a part of, which we're really blessed. That means that either monthly or quarterly, you commit to praying and supporting financially the work here that we're able to be a part of. So it's a huge blessing for us. It allows us to stay on the field. We're your LCMS missionaries, but we're on the field because of your congregation of individual support. So we're really, really thankful for that and blessed to have that.
This concludes our program for the day. See you in the funny papers.